Buterin 10. He wrote about Bitcoin before he could legally drive. While most teenagers were worrying about high school crushes and video games, Vitalik was writing analytical essays about the future of money. At just 17, he was introduced to Bitcoin by his father, Vitalik Buterin, a computer scientist who had immigrated from Russia to Canada. At first, Vitalik didn't get it. Why would anyone care about some internet money? But once he read the white paper, he was hooked, not by greed, but by the elegance of the idea. He became obsessed, diving into every form, post, and technical thread he could find. Within months, he began writing articles about Bitcoin for a website that paid him in the very thing he was studying, 5 Bitcoin per article. At the time, that was worth about $4 total. Today, that would be tens of thousands of dollars per piece. But Vitalik didn't care about the money. He cared about the math, the logic, and the potential to build something revolutionary. That curiosity led him to co-found Bitcoin magazine in 2012, while still a teenager. The publication became one of the first serious platforms to discuss blockchain technology, and Vitalik's thoughtful yet piercing articles stood out. He wasn't just repeating hype, he was dissecting the structure of this new technology like a surgeon. It was clear that he wasn't just an observer. He was someone destined to reshape the system itself. By 18, Vitalik was already respected in the crypto community. He wasn't loud or flashy, just quietly brilliant. His early writings built a foundation for what would later become his life's mission, not to make another currency, but to build a new kind of internet, one that didn't need banks, governments, or even middlemen to function. Number 9. He dropped out of college to create Ethereum and turned down $100,000 to do it. Most parents would panic if their kid said, "I'm quitting college to build a new kind of world computer." But Vitalik wasn't just any student, and his ideas weren't the kind you could contain in a classroom. After enrolling at the University of Waterloo, he studied computer science but found himself distracted by something far bigger, the idea of using blockchain not just for money, but for everything. He imagined smart contracts, self-executing programs that could automatically enforce agreements without lawyers, judges, or banks. The blockchain could become more than a ledger. It could be an entire ecosystem. When he shared this idea at conferences, people didn't know what to make of it. Some thought it was genius, others thought it was impossible. Then came a pivotal moment. Vitalik was offered the Thiel Fellowship, a $100,000 grant from billionaire Peter Thiel, designed to help young innovators drop out of college and chase big ideas. Most people would have taken the money instantly, but Vitalik said no. Why? Because Ethereum was already taking off, and he didn't want any perception that he was working under someone else's influence. Instead, he focused all his energy on building Ethereum from scratch, gathering a small team of coders and visionaries around him. They lived and worked together like a group of idealists on a mission, coding day and night, sleeping on couches, eating instant noodles, and debating how to make their dream real. By 2015, the first version of Ethereum was live. It wasn't just another cryptocurrency. It was a platform, a digital canvas where anyone could build decentralized apps, financial systems, games, or even social networks that couldn't be censored or controlled. Vitalik had officially become the face of a new internet revolution. But what's striking isn't that he succeeded, it's how he did it. While Silicon Valley startups fought over funding and control, Vitalik gave away the blueprint. He didn't keep Ethereum private, he made it open source, free for anyone to build on. In a world obsessed with profit, he built something for principle. And that's what separates Vitalik Buterin from nearly every other tech founder alive. Zucker 8. He became a billionaire by accident and gave it all away. Vitalik Buterin never set out to be rich. In fact, he often looked uncomfortable being called a crypto-billionaire. When Ethereum exploded in value, millions of investors poured in. Overnight, Vitalik's personal holdings of Ether made him one of the youngest billionaires on the planet. But instead of celebrating, he felt uneasy. He saw people worshiping crypto prices like a religion, forgetting the technology's purpose. In May 2021, Vitalik made one of the most surprising moves in financial history. A meme coin project called Shiba Inu, created as a joke, had sent him half of its total supply, worth billions, to his public Ethereum wallet. The developers did it as a marketing stunt, hoping that associating the token with Vitalik would give it credibility. They never expected what he would do next. Vitalik didn't want that kind of power, so he burned most of the Shiba Inu tokens, literally sending them to an address no one could ever access, destroying over $6 billion worth of crypto in one click. Then he took the remaining portion and donated it to COVID-19 relief efforts in India. The donation was so massive, over $1 billion, that it temporarily destabilized the local crypto market. Reporters called him the world's most generous billionaire. But for Vitalik, it wasn't charity. It was a statement. He wanted to remind the world that crypto was an ENT created to make a few people rich. It was built to decentralize power, to break the monopoly of banks, governments, and corporations over people's financial lives. He later explained his philosophy in an interview. You can't just build technology and expect it to be neutral. You need to think about the social consequences of what you're creating. That's what separates him from typical entrepreneurs. For Vitalik, blockchain isn't just code, it's ethics. Even after giving away so much, he still lives modestly. He rents small apartments, wears simple clothes, and doesn't own luxury cars. When asked about wealth, he laughed and said he's more interested in building meaningful things than collecting zeros in a bank account. In a digital age driven by greed, Vitalik Buterin is proof that genius and humility can still coexist. Number 7. He built Ethereum as a reaction to Bitcoin's limits. Many people think Vitalik simply copied Bitcoin and gave it a new name. That couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, Ethereum was born out of frustration, specifically frustration with Bitcoin's limitations. Back in 2013, when Vitalik was deeply involved in the Bitcoin community, he proposed adding a simple scripting language that would allow developers to build applications on top of Bitcoin. But the Bitcoin core developers rejected the idea. They wanted to keep Bitcoin pure, a digital gold, not a programmable platform. That rejection lit a spark. Vitalik realized that to unlock the full potential of blockchain technology, he'd need to start from scratch. So he wrote a white paper describing Ethereum, a decentralized world computer capable of running smart contracts. These weren't just financial transactions. They were mini-programs that could automate anything: voting systems, insurance, crowdfunding, even video games. When he released the white paper online, it spread like wildfire. Developers saw what Bitcoin couldn't do and what Ethereum might make possible. Soon, a small team gathered around him: Gavin Wood, Joseph Lubin, Mihai Alisi, and others. They weren't building a coin, they were building an ecosystem. To fund development, they held one of the world's first initial coin offerings, ICOs, raising about $18 million in Bitcoin from supporters worldwide. That money built the foundation of Ethereum's network, which launched in 2015. But what truly shocked the world was how quickly Ethereum grew beyond its original scope. Within a few years, it became the backbone of thousands of decentralized projects, NFTs, DeFi platforms, and DAOs, all powered by the same code Vitalik had once written as a college dropout. He often describes Ethereum as the Lego blocks of innovation. You can stack them in infinite ways to build systems that no government or corporation can shut down. It's not a single invention. It's a framework for human creativity. Still, success came with chaos. During the 2017 ICO boom, Ethereum's network became clogged with scams and speculation. Vitalik, disturbed by how people were using his creation, reminded the world that crypto isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a tool for coordination, for freedom. He's spent years pushing for more sustainable, socially conscious applications of blockchain, like decentralized voting and universal basic income experiments. That's the essence of Vitalik's vision, a system where trust does not come from authority but from transparency, a world not ruled by banks but by code. And it all started because one young man dared to challenge Bitcoin itself. Chapter 6. He predicted many crypto crises before they happened. For someone so young, Vitalik Buterin has an uncanny ability to see the future, not with mysticism, but with math and logic. Throughout the last decade, he's earned a reputation as the voice of reason in a market full of noise. While influencers shouted, "To the moon," Vitalik calmly warned that the sky had limits. Back in 2017, during the height of the ICO frenzy, people were launching tokens for everything, some with no product, no team, and no purpose. Ethereum was at the center of it all since most ICOs used its network. While others celebrated the flood of new money, Vitalik wasn't impressed. He publicly said, "The market will eventually correct itself when people realize these projects don't deliver value." And he was right. Within a year, the bubble burst, billions evaporated, and Ethereum's price collapsed. But Vitalik remained steady, because he had built for longevity, not speculation. He also predicted the NFT crash years before it happened. When NFTs exploded in 2021, Vitalik warned that the hype would fade unless creators found meaningful use cases beyond digital collectibles. His exact words were, "The danger is people get distracted by short-term gains and forget to build things that actually matter." Again, he was right. The NFT mania cooled down, leaving behind only the projects with real artistic or technological depth. Even his views on stablecoins, cryptocurrencies tied to the value of fiat currencies, proved prescient. In 2022, when the Terra Luna collapse wiped out over $40 billion in investor money, Vitalik had already expressed doubts years before, saying that algorithmic stablecoins were fundamentally fragile. He saw the flaw long before the system broke. This ability to anticipate disaster doesn't come from luck, it comes from discipline. Vitalik is brutally analytical. He reads every research paper, tests every theory, and thinks in terms of systems, not prices. That's why developers, even those who disagree with him, listen. In an industry driven by greed and speculation, Vitalik stands out as a thinker who actually understands what he's building. But what makes him special is how he communicates his predictions, not as commands, but as reflections. He doesn't tell people what to buy or sell. He asks deeper questions. What kind of world are we building with this technology? That humility, combined with his sharp foresight, has made him the moral compass of the crypto world. In many ways, Vitalik isn't just a founder, he's a philosopher of the digital age, warning that without ethics, even the best technology can turn against us. Number 5. He's obsessed with solving humanity's coordination problem. To Vitalik, blockchain isn't about getting rich. It is about fixing what's broken in, how humans cooperate. He believes the biggest challenge of our time isn't money or politics. It's coordination. How can millions of people make collective decisions without corruption, bias, or manipulation? That's the question that keeps him up at night. He often references the coordination problem in his writings, a concept borrowed from game theory. In simple terms, it's the idea that humans are terrible at aligning on shared goals, especially when incentives conflict. Governments fight over power, corporations over profit, individuals over ego. But what if there was a system that aligned everyone through code? That's where Ethereum comes in. With smart contracts, people can agree on outcomes that execute automatically. No middlemen, no manipulation, no broken promises. It's not just about finance. Vitalik imagines using blockchain to manage climate change initiatives, community governance, or even social welfare programs. He's fascinated by DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, where people around the world can pool funds, vote transparently, and make collective decisions. In his mind, this could be the future of democracy, one not limited by geography or bureaucracy. In 2021, he published an essay called "The Most Important Scarce Resource is Legitimacy." In it, he argued that trust, not money, is the true foundation of society. Governments, institutions, and currencies survive only because people collectively believe in them. Lose that belief, and even the strongest empire collapses. Blockchain, he says, offers a new form of legitimacy, built on math instead of authority. Vitalik also experiments with new governance models, like quadratic voting, where the number of votes you get increases with your passion for an issue, not just your wealth. He wants systems where every voice matters, not just those with deep pockets. To him, Ethereum isn't the end goal. It is a stepping stone toward a world where humans finally cooperate efficiently and fairly. It's why he often says, technology should serve coordination, not replace it. It's this idealism that confuses people who see crypto as just money. Vitalik never wanted to destroy governments or banks. He wanted to build systems that make them obsolete, not by rebellion, but by better design. So, while traders chase the next coin pump, Vitalik is thinking about how to design systems that could one day coordinate the global economy, distribute resources, and rebuild trust in humanity itself. And maybe that's the greatest irony. In an industry full of chaos, the one man who built its most unpredictable technology might be the only one still trying to bring order to it. Before, he lives like a minimalist monk despite being worth billions. If you met Vitalik Buterin on the street, you might not even recognize him. No security entourage, no designer suits, no supercars. Just a tall, slightly awkward guy in a wrinkled t-shirt with a backpack that probably holds his laptop, a few books, and a half-eaten granola bar. For someone whose creations have moved hundreds of billions of dollars through global markets, his lifestyle is shockingly humble. Vitalik's net worth, mostly tied up in ether, has fluctuated between hundreds of millions to over $1 billion depending on crypto prices. Yet he continues to live simply. He rents modest apartments, often in places where you wouldn't expect a billionaire to stay. When he travels, he flies economy or low-cost airlines. He's even been spotted staying in hostels during conferences. His philosophy is almost stoic. In one interview, he said, "Luxury just distracts you from solving real problems." For him, material wealth isn't a measure of success. Impact is. Instead of yachts or mansions, Vitalik invests in causes he believes in: universal health care, AI safety, public goods funding, and pandemic research. He's also remarkably transparent. His Ethereum wallet is public, meaning anyone can see how much he owns, where it moves, and what he donates. Few billionaires live with that level of openness. It's a radical kind of honesty that mirrors the very transparency Ethereum was built on. Vitalik's friends often describe him as deeply awkward but profoundly kind. He'd rather debate game theory or moral philosophy than attend fancy galas. Once, at a crypto conference in Singapore, instead of dining with executives, he spent hours sitting cross-legged on the floor talking to a group of student developers about governance models. That's who he is, a thinker who values ideas over appearances. In a culture obsessed with flaunting wealth, Vitalik's minimalism sends a message. True innovation doesn't need glamour. It needs clarity, humility, and focus. By stripping away distractions, he's built a mental space where complex ideas can flourish. In a way, his simplicity is his superpower. It keeps him immune to the greed that consumes so many in his industry. But even beyond lifestyle, his minimalism runs deeper. He once said, "Everything you own owns a part of you." That's why he owns so little, so that nothing owns him. 3. He is not just a coder, he is a philosopher shaping the ethics of technology. Vitalik Buterin may write code in solidity, but his real language is philosophy. His essays read less like tech manifestos and more like moral blueprints for the digital future. He's constantly asking, what happens when code becomes law? Who gets to decide what's fair in a decentralized world? Can we design systems that encourage empathy instead of greed? His intellectual influences go far beyond computer science. He often references thinkers like John Rawls, Nick Bostrom, and Elinor Ostrom. He reads about game theory, sociology, and evolutionary psychology to understand how humans interact and how those interactions can be improved by technology. In one essay titled The Meaning of Decentralization, he dissected not just how blockchain works, but what it means for society. He argued that decentralization isn't about chaos, it's about resilience, freedom, and accountability. In a centralized system, one mistake can destroy everything. In a decentralized one, failure becomes local, not global. It's a philosophy of empowerment, giving control back to individuals instead of institutions. Vitalik also frequently speaks about existential risk, the idea that technology can both save and destroy humanity. He's publicly funded research into AI alignment, biosecurity, and climate modeling because he believes technology without ethics is like fire without control, capable of burning down the very civilization it was meant to improve. He once joked that if he weren't building Ethereum, he'd probably be working on governance for interplanetary civilizations. And honestly, that's not far off. His mind doesn't stop at borders. It thinks in systems big enough for entire species. At conferences, people expect him to talk about crypto prices, but instead, he discusses moral coordination, public goods, and the balance between freedom and safety. He's like a mix between a programmer, a monk, and a political theorist, someone trying to write humanity's next constitution in lines of code. He's also surprisingly self-critical. He doesn't see himself as a hero. When asked if Ethereum will change the world, he said, "It will, but not because of me, because people will build things I could never imagine." That humility, combined with intellect, is why Vitalik isn't just respected. He's revered. So while Wall Street sees Ethereum as a financial asset, Vitalik sees it as a moral experiment, a test to see if humanity can design systems that reward honesty instead of greed, collaboration instead of competition, and creativity instead of control. He's not leading a company. He's leading a philosophical movement disguised as code. And whether you understand blockchain or not, you can feel the weight of that mission every time he speaks. Number 2. He envisions Ethereum as humanity's next public good. To Vitalik Buterin, Ethereum was never meant to be just another piece of technology. In his mind, it's a digital public utility, like the internet, but fairer, more transparent, and owned by everyone. He often compares it to the roads and bridges of the digital economy, infrastructure that anyone can use, not something owned by a corporation or controlled by governments. He's constantly fighting against the idea that Ethereum is just a platform for speculation. To him, that's like saying the internet is only for cat videos. Ethereum, he insists, is the backbone for innovation, a system that could one day support universal identity, global governance, and transparent finance. Vitalik E.'s long-term vision is what he calls Ethereum as a coordination layer for the planet. In simple terms, it's a foundation where nations, institutions, and individuals can all interact through shared, trustless systems. Imagine voting for a global climate policy on Ethereum, or distributing pandemic aid directly through smart contracts with no middlemen, no corruption, no bureaucracy. That's not sci-fi for him. It's the goal. To make this dream sustainable, he's championed the concept of public goods funding. Traditional capitalism underfunds things that benefit everyone, like clean air, education, or open-source software, because there's no profit incentive. So Vitalik is working to design crypto-based models that automatically fund such causes. One example is quadratic funding, which multiplies the impact of small donors by giving them matching funds based on how many people support a project, not how much they give. It's democracy for money, small voices amplified through math. He's also deeply involved in the ongoing evolution of Ethereum itself. The network's shift from proof of work to proof of stake, a move that reduced its energy consumption by over 99%, was part of his long battle to make Ethereum not only efficient, but also environmentally responsible. Critics said it couldn't be done, but Vitalik proved them wrong again. He doesn't see technology and morality as separate. To him, they're the same thing. Every upgrade, every protocol, every tweak is a moral decision that shapes the kind of world we're building. That's why he often says, blockchains are mirrors for society. They reflect our values, our flaws, and our hopes. And in that reflection, Ethereum is becoming more than a cryptocurrency. It's a global experiment in collective trust. If it succeeds, it could redefine how humanity collaborates, trades, and even governs itself. Number 1. He's redefining what it means to be a genius in the 21st century. When you picture a genius, you might imagine Einstein's wild hair or Steve Jobs' turtleneck. Vitalik Buterin doesn't fit either image. He's not a showman, not a marketer, not a CEO. He's an introverted thinker who'd rather write a 3,000-word essay about voting theory than appear on TV. Yet his impact might surpass them all. Vitalik represents a new kind of intellect, one shaped not by power, but by principles. In an era when billionaires build rockets or monopolize social media, he builds tools that give power away. His genius isn't just in what he knows, but in what he questions. He doesn't chase fame. He questions why people need it. He doesn't hoard wealth. He asks what money is even for. He also breaks the stereotype of the cold technologist. Behind his quiet demeanor is a surprising warmth. He often donates anonymously to causes in need, responds personally to developers struggling with code, and shows genuine empathy for users who lose money due to hacks or scams. In 2022, after a major DeFi exploit, Vitalik publicly comforted victims and offered technical advice to prevent it from happening again. He didn't need to. He just cared. His genius also lies in his ability to unite opposites. He's both visionary and realist, both scientist and philosopher, both dreamer and doer. He talks about blockchain the way others talk about art, something that must have integrity, beauty, and soul. That's why he's become something rare in modern tech, a founder people actually trust. And perhaps that's his greatest achievement. Not Ethereum itself, but the idea that technology can still be guided by conscience. In a digital world fueled by greed, Vitalik Buterin reminds us that intelligence without compassion is empty, and innovation without ethics is dangerous. He's not building a product, he's building a philosophy. And whether you use crypto or not, you're already living in a world that his ideas helped shape. From a teenage blogger to a visionary philosopher, Vitalik Buterin has lived a life that blurs the line between logic and empathy, code and conscience. He didn't just create Ethereum, he redefined what it means to create something for the world, not just for yourself. If you look closely, his legacy is not measured in dollars or market caps, it is in the billions of human connections now powered by trustless systems, open code, and shared belief in something bigger than profit. That's what makes Vitalik Buterin not just a genius, but a revolutionary. If you like this video, don't forget to hit like and share to help it reach more curious minds. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the stories behind modern visionaries. Join the channel for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes features, and if you'd like to support us directly, hit the thanks button below. Every click helps us keep bringing you the stories that matter.